I wanted to focus on today's first reading from Paul's letter to the Philippians. Notice how he says, "Make my joy complete. Be of the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord and of one mind." Now, usually when we read a passage like this, we would assume that, well, he's addressing the fact that, sometimes there's divisions amongst the believers, and he's trying to avoid these divisions. He's trying to encourage them to avoid these divisions. But it's much, much more than that. So in other words, having the same mind and having the same love, in other words, be filled with love. Be filled with the truths of our faith. Live out those truths to the best of your abilities, and you will live in peace. You will live in harmony. You will practice love for each other. You will give and you will receive, and everyone will be content and everyone will be happy, and things will just work out very well for everyone. It's wonderful. In other words, be ideal Christians. But of course, we know that is often not the situation, and it's important to keep in mind that this is something that we should all strive for. And notice how he goes on to say, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility regard others as better than yourselves. Let each of you look not to your own interests, but to the interests of others." And this is very important, and I think it's worthwhile to meditate on this, or to kind of make this a passage that you want to read again and again. So do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit. So often we have personal ambitions, selfish ambitions, right? So treat others or regard others as better than yourselves. Very often we tend to look down upon others. So we need to see others not just as our equals, but as St. Paul here says, as better than ourselves. And if they are better than ourselves, then ideally we want to respect them and to treat them with greater respect. Now, this very last line is very important. Let each of you look not to your own interests, but to the interests of others. So the interests of others, what is it that others need, right? So that's what we need to look at and to look for. And in today's gospel reading, our Lord says, if you give a meal, invite those who cannot repay you, the poor. And if we were looking out for the interests of the poor, well, okay, if we were having a banquet or a meal, we might invite the poor, or in today's age, we give donations, we raise funds for food banks and things like that to help the poor. We're looking out for their interests. But on the other hand, when we look to our own interests, our world tends to revolve around ourselves, our own wants, our own needs, and we all have needs, I'm sure. But we just focus on that. And sometimes because of our pride, we tend to just insist that we have things our own way, and often to the detriment of those around us. In other words, we don't care what somebody else might think. We don't care how it might affect someone, as long as I get what I want. That's often the attitude of many, many people. So we need to overcome that. And what's the fruit of this, So St. Paul is hoping for this fruit that will result in unity. So the fruit will be unity, right? True unity, true love. So when we look to the interests of others, well, we're going to be generous, we're going to be kind, we're going to help others, we're going to help them not just in regards to their physical needs and wants, but also in regards to their spiritual needs. Very important. Most of us hopefully appreciate our faith. Imagine if we didn't have the faith and somebody was instrumental in giving us the faith. Hopefully we would acknowledge that we would be extremely grateful to that person for that gift. So ultimately it's from God, but God makes use of people, so God can make use of us. So when we are generous, when we look to the interests of others, when we see others as better than ourselves, we tend to make a lot of friends. People will love us in return. They will be generous to us. We serve them, they will serve us. On the other hand, when we look to our own interests, and especially if we are uncaring of others, or some people, they tend to be very manipulative just so that they get their own way. They're very insistent on having things their own way. They insist that they are always right, and they're not willing to consider other options. Often these people, they make enemies. They don't have friends. Sometimes they are isolated. They are alone, which is very, very unfortunate. But you see, the reality is we're all prone to be like that. We all like to have things our own way. And we often take steps to ensure that we have things our own way. But no, we need to look to the interests of others, and ultimately we need to look to the interests of God. What does God want? Well, he wants us to be holy, yes. He also wants us to promote his kingdom. He wants us to save souls. And if we look to the interests of the people around us, what is their greatest need? Salvation. It's their greatest need. Even though they may not realize it, we should. So we have the ability, as I mentioned before, kind of like if somebody falls into the water and they can't swim and we throw them a life jacket, we do a tremendous good in saving that person from drowning. But the reality is that many people are drowning and they're going to end up in hell, and we could throw them this life jacket, which is really proclaiming the truths of our faith, but so few Catholics are willing to do that. And it's very, very unfortunate. So let us look out for opportunities to help those who are in need, not just in their material, physical needs, but also in regards to their spiritual needs.